Welcome to Sports Biz with LD. I'm your host, Larry Davis, with my boy Mikey behind the glass. Let's get right into it. The women's Final Four from Tampa. Gino Auriemma wins his 10th, that's right, his 10th title. I mean, are you kidding me? The guy has won 10 collegiate basketball women's tournaments. That is ridiculous. With 5 undefeated seasons. He's got an .873 winning percentage, 918 wins and 134 losses. And he's only 61 years old. I'm saying right now, Gino Auriemma is the greatest coach in sports history. And what a great argument that could be. Because the argument is going to be, you want to look at Coach K, who just won a title on Monday night, too. That's his 5th title. He doesn't have any undefeated seasons. Not saying that defines you, but that's a pretty strong statistic when you got undefeated seasons. Then you got the great John Wooden in basketball with 10 titles at UCLA, including 7 straight. That is pretty impressive. That puts him up there with Gino. The argument is very good right there with him and Gino. And then you go to the pros. You know, you want to go to Red Auerbach, who has 9 titles. 9. Okay, that's pretty strong. And then, of course, you go to the head of basketball operations right here in New York with the New York Knickerbockers, Phil Jackson with 11, the Lord of the Rings. So, to break down the argument here, yeah, I'll put Gino right up there with Wooden. Because in collegiate basketball, it's a new team every few years. No doubt about it. You know, in the NBA, you look at what Phil Jackson did, and Phil, yeah, he had great talent. Listen, he had Phil and he had Michael and Scotty. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, he had them for 6 years. He had 6 titles with them. And then he leaves and goes over to the Lakers, and he's got Kobe and he's got Shaq. So, yes. He had great talent, and he won. I take nothing away from Phil. He's got 11 titles. And then you go to Red Auerbach with his 9 titles, and he had all the talent in his run as well. Bill Russell, Cousy, Chaney, Heinsohn. I mean, it was just ridiculous the talent he had. He had everybody. But they beat some great Laker teams too, Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, and those. So, you know, at the end of the day, in the NBA, I don't think you can compare the two, that it's as difficult as it is in collegiate basketball, because the bottom line is they're turning over the players. And, you know, Coach K won, you know, in the 90s. And now he wins again. And a couple of freshmen come off the bench and play great for him. But you go and look at what John Wooden did at UCLA. And what Gino Auriemma did at UConn. You know, now people are saying that Gino gets all the players. I don't know. You look at that Final Four, a couple other teams besides UConn had 30 wins. Had 30 wins. So there were other great women basketball players, you know, dominating in women's college basketball until you face Connecticut. You cannot beat him. 5 undefeated seasons, 10 national championships. He's MC Hammer, man. You can't touch this. And there's no one to stop him in sight. I just don't see it. And you know something? I don't hear him getting the accolades he deserves. The best ever. Right there with John Wooden. Because John's got 10. And Gino's got 10. And when Gino wins again next year and he gets 11, that's it. There's not even a question. He's not tied with John Wooden anymore. He will have 11 titles. Think about that. And an .873 winning percentage. Let me tell you, he only loses 1 or 2 games a year. After next year, his winning percentage could be 900. Think about that. He's winning 9 out of 10 games. Who does that? Gino does that. That's who does it. And a week and a half ago, Gino killed the men's collegiate basketball game. He said they stink. Yeah, that's what he said. He said they can't score. They're not great. And you know, some people can call it sour grapes. Some people can say, what do you know? You coach women. What? He's a basketball coach, man. That guy is great at X and O's, getting talent, getting them to come to UConn, playing as a team. You ask every one of those girls who played for him all these years, they say the same thing. He doesn't stop. Every practice you need to be great. Every play you need to be great. Every time you run in a practice, you need to do it your best. The guy is all about every single thing that happens to do with his basketball program. You need to be great. You need to do your best every single time. You are not allowed to take a second off, whether it's in the weight room, whether it's running, whether it's in practice, and especially in the games. Gino Auriemma is here. Okay? They should change the trophy. I don't even know what the name of the trophy is in the NCAA for the women's basketball. It should be the Gino Auriemma Trophy. And I know that on the men's side, the best player of the year, there's a trophy that's called the John Wooden Award. Why isn't there a Gino Auriemma Award already at this point for the women's side? It's not even a question. It's not even a question. Gino Auriemma is the greatest coach, right? Arguably the greatest coach in sports history, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, or hockey. It's just what it comes down to. And I don't know why you don't hear more of other coaches in the same sport and other sports want to go to his practice, want to hear him lecture, want to hear him talk. Why not? Because he's coaching women? What's the difference? These girls are athletes. He's putting 5 people together on a court at the same time who play as one. Reminds you of the Knicks teams. And yeah, you're going to say everyone wants to go and play for UConn? Okay, but like I said, in the Final Four, they had a couple of teams with 30 wins as well. Doesn't mean all the great players are going to play for him. And it doesn't mean he's taking you. He might not want you. How about that? You don't fit into his team-oriented style. I mean, he probably could get every single superstar, but he's not taking them. Most probably that's really what's going on there. That if somebody wants to go there, he'll end up saying, you're not coming here, I'm not giving you a scholarship. I got my team, I got my girls, I got who I want. If John Wooden was alive today, how great would that be? Have John Wooden and Gino on a panel and talking about collegiate basketball, any basketball, but just talking about coaching, how great they are. You know, in football, they say Vince Lombardi's the greatest coach. Okay, you know, no diss to him. He only won 3 titles. Okay? And they say it's always all about the players. And all these professional sports, yeah, you do free agency. It wasn't in those days, but now you keep putting a new team together. In collegiate sports, you have to. You know, in the killing, like I said last week, of John Calipari with the one and done, which just yesterday came out, 7 of Calipari's players, 7, are leaving his team. They're going to the NBA draft. So everyone's killing Calipari because his players leave one and done. What does that have to do with Calipari? He's not pushing them out. But give the respect to Calipari. Now he's got to retool the whole team. He's just lost 7 players. 7 studs. You know, I'm not saying they're all studs, but a good amount of 4 or 5 of those guys are studs. They're going to be first-round draft picks in the NBA, so there could be they're studs in college. Moving on, Gino Auriemma is, in my opinion, him and John Wooden, the greatest coaches in sports history. And again, like I said, Gino's only 61. How many more titles will he win? And just to talk a little bit about Phil Jackson and MSG, before we move on to a little more about the NCAA, there's something in the paper the other day with MSG Network that the game involving the Knicks Wizards mustered is a nice word, a rating of .18. .18. And they're not, you know, the Knicks, of course, are not, the spokespeople aren't saying anything, of course, because how embarrassing is that? That's the least watched game, they're saying, pretty close to ever. What does that mean in normal terms? 14,000 people tuned in to some point in that game. That's it. 14,000 people. Nobody is watching the Knicks games. And listen, you don't blame them. They're terrible. 14,000 people, that's all, who tuned in to watch the Knicks play the Wizards. And they weren't even playing the Sixers. Imagine what the rating is if the Knicks played the Sixers. The team was just only won 2 more games than the Knicks. Is anyone watching that game? The only people watching those games are the relatives of the players. I can't see anybody else watching those games and their friends. Wow. How bad is that in MSG? And it's not how much. It can only get better, of course, but how far is it going? Phil's not going to win a championship here. It's too difficult. All the good players are out there, but by the time they put a ball club together, you're not winning a team. Like everyone's looking at the Atlanta Hawks. Oh, they're playing so great, team basketball. They're not winning. And who are their superstars? So, they compare them to San Antonio. Yeah, but San Antonio still got superstars. They still got Tim Duncan, who's probably the most underrated player in all the sports. And you got Tony Parker from France, is another great point guard, but he's not considered great. He's top 10 point guard. He's probably top 5 in the league because all he does is win. Then you got Ginobili coming off the bench. So you got some superstars. Even though Ginobili doesn't get the credit, he's probably one of the best 6 men in the last 10 years because all he does is come off the bench and help them win. So I don't really see our Knicks doing much better. But again, like I've said many times, of course, this being a sports business show, it doesn't matter. The Knicks could be terrible. People going to the Garden. You go. You spend the money. You spend the top dollar. You eat, you drink, you entertain, and you go to MSG. Let's go back to the NCAA tournament just for a second. The ESPN bracket, there was a young boy, 12-year-old boy named Sam Holtz from Lake Zurich, Illinois. 11.57 million people participated in the bracket. I mean, we all know how difficult that is. The problem is he used his father's email account and claimed he was 18 to enter the challenge, which you can't tell on the internet. Ends up he wins. He comes up with the prize package. And he wins, which the prize package, by the way, is only $20,000 and a trip to next season's Maui Invitational. I mean, that's it? For winning that, when 11.5 million people were involved, you end up winning on the bracket, and that's all you get? But ESPN said they're not giving it to him because he's underage, uses dad's email address. Come on, ESPN. I mean, you didn't even give him $1 million. What are you giving the kid? Yeah, I know there's rules and everything. Listen, bottom line is take care of the kid and from now on say these rules will be strictly enforced. But give the kid Sam Holtz. I mean, come on, look what he did. Or at least invite him to the Final Four next year. Get him to meet his favorite college player. I mean, you're ESPN. You can do anything. Take care of this kid. Come on. It's embarrassing. Come on, you're ESPN. Do it for the kid. Sammy Holtz, nice job, man. It's unbelievable. And so many people think they're so smart. You just fill in your bracket. Sam Holtz, 12-year-old, does it. That's great. Let's move on right here in New York to the New York Rangers. They clinch the President's Cup. The President's Cup basically says you have the best regular season record in the NHL. So during the regular season, you are the best. What does that mean in the playoffs? Absolutely nothing, except, you get home field advantage throughout home ice advantage through the playoffs. But that's a big thing for the Rangers. When they started out, I think 7-7-4, something to that effect. Everyone was saying, what's wrong with the Rangers? Well, what's wrong with the Rangers? They went off. The Rangers are playing so well. Let's hope they haven't peaked in the regular season. And then Lundqvist last night looked like he got hurt his leg on a save when one of the players went over him. The Rangers lost last night 3-0, but they're still the best. The other interesting thing, there's a number of teams going into this weekend who will end up having mid-90s. Imagine you're over 90 points in the NHL, 95 points in the NHL, and not make the playoffs. There were years everybody would say about the NHL, oh, everybody makes the playoffs. Everybody makes the playoffs. Well, this year, everyone's not making the playoffs. And the LA Kings, the defending champions, who just went through everybody last year, if you remember, they had 7-game series, every one, and one on the road, every one, except when they beat the Rangers for the Cup final, for the Stanley Cup, they're out. They cannot defend their championship. The last few teams that had the most points, in 95-96, the Red Wings had the most points. They had 131, did not win the Stanley Cup. Last team to win the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup were the Blackhawks in 2012-2013, the lockout shorted season. So last team to do it in a full 82-game season, okay, we're following all that, is the Red Wings, 2007-2008. So that's interesting. 2007 and 8, Red Wings win the championship and the President's Trophy. And also 95-96, the Red Wings win. Were those during the Scotty Bowman years? Another guy, we're talking about great coaches. He's up there as one of the greatest coaches of all time, but he's not Gino. Gino with 10 titles. Look, I'm already talking to Gino's winning next year. With 11 titles is the guy. Let's move on. It was Major League Baseball opening week. A lot of exciting things happen and a lot of unexciting things. First things, not many people go to these games the first week. They go opening day and then that's it. Too cold. April's never been a big month for tickets, for good ticket sales for the Major League Baseball. It's just interesting. I don't understand how baseball has these record-breaking ratings and record-breaking people going to games. It's so boring. And who's there to watch? I mean, I don't get all these. I just don't see it. But the numbers are there showing that everyone's going to games and a lot of people watching. Again, I don't think in April, but let's go opening week. Yesterday, Matt Harvey of the Mets faced Steven Strasburg of the Washington Nationals. It ends up that Harvey wins the game, his first game back in a year and a half from Tommy John surgery. Interesting that he faces Steven Strasburg, who had Tommy John surgery. And it just seems like Strasburg is not the same pitcher before Tommy John surgery. Now, most guys come back from TJ surgery and they're as good or even maybe a little better. Most of them. Strasburg just doesn't seem to be as great as he was beforehand. And it's over a year later. So it's not like you could say, well, maybe he needs to build up some arm strength and stuff. I don't really see it. I mean, he pitched well yesterday. It was 6 runs, only 3 earned, but he didn't get the win. And again, it was still 6 runs, even though only 3 of them were earned. And Matt Harvey just came in and looked like Matt Harvey. I mean, Matt Harvey could be the second coming of Tom Seaver. I mean, he really can. A pitcher of that level, I use Tom Seaver because he was a Met. I mean, Matt Harvey's just smooth as silk out there. Yesterday, I think his line was six innings, 1 walk, 8 Ks, no runs. He threw about 90 pitches, exactly what the Mets wanted to do. It was right at 90 pitches. Okay, 90 pitches for 6 innings, it's a lot, but that was his pitch limit. Matt Harvey just looked great. And, they say, and it's true, we have an ace like that, the whole team gets up for him. And think about that. The Mets win the first game, lose the second game in a series. And then when going into their last game of the series, you got your ace, you got a Matt Harvey coming on the mound. You feel pretty damn good you're going to win. And that's what the Mets did. Mets came away with that victory. The Mets win 2 out of 3 from the Nationals, who killed the Mets. I think the Mets won 4 games last year, maybe lost 16 to the Nationals. I mean, the Nationals had their number like you couldn't imagine. Them to go into Washington at Nationals Park, 2 out of 3. Nice start for the Mets. Does it mean much? It does psych-wise. For the Mets to say we could play with the big boys. To jump to the Yankees, even though I didn't tell Mikey I was going to talk about the Yankees, so I'm sure he's not prepared to throw up that logo, but the Yankees lost 2 out of 3 to the Blue Jays, and they should have lost all 3. The Yankees are done. I said it earlier, they're toast. They got nothing. There's no reason to go to that park. No one wants to see him. There's no stars on that team. Yes, A-Rod hit a home run yesterday. CC Sabathia looked like CC Sabathia the last couple of years. He's terrible. He's done. Sorry, CC. You got tons of money. You're done. You can't pitch. You let him 4 runs in the first inning, 4 or 5 runs in the first inning. I mean, of course, Girardi, there's nothing to say, Joe. We know it and you know him. He's done. He's a $25 million a year guy for the next couple of years who, is not going to pitch that well. Hopefully in the warm weather he'll pitch a little better, but I can't see CC winning 10 games, 12 games, maybe. And he'll have a 4.5, 5 ERA. That's if the Yankees can score. And the Yankees this lineup doesn't scare anyone. I don't know what the Yankees have, man, but they're in a lot of trouble. They get Tanaka opening day with his elbow. He loses. He lets up 4 or 5 runs. The Yankees are toast. I don't see anything going on with the Yankees. One of the great stories so far is, and this has never happened in baseball, this is the first time in baseball history, you got to love this kind of stuff, is Adrian Gonzalez of the Dodgers has 5 home runs through the first 3 games. Now, that's a guy with a $120, $150 million contract. He's earning his money out in L.A. He got traded from the Padres to L.A. a couple of years ago. I'm sorry, from the Red Sox a couple of years ago in that big blockbuster trade. 5 homers in the first 3 games. Gotta love that. Of course, that pace cannot continue, but I love it. I mean, opening week in baseball, and he takes the prize. Well, I don't think he takes the prize. This next story I have takes the prize. We're going to leave on this note. The Chicago Cubs had major problems on opening night with long bathroom lines due to parts of the stadium being closed off for renovations. The Cubs are bringing in portable toilets. Now, will the portable toilets look like this, or are these the one that should be in the stadium? Because I would think anyone who was at that game and they had to go to the bathroom, they would say, I want to piss on the Cubs. That's it for this week. Sports Biz with LD. I'm your host, Larry Davis.